Nothing officially to report at this stage of the game. There's a lot of talk, a lot of speculation. I don't think that anything's done quite yet on that front from an official standpoint, so I really can't say much about it.
Are you expecting?
Potentially, yeah, maybe. Potentially, yes, maybe.
Do you know about the availability of players for the bowl game?
No, not yet. I mean, quite frankly, but I know when we had a team meeting on Monday, talked about the bowl game, everybody was here and looked at me like everybody was excited to play, and so I don't anticipate anyone not playing.
On those same lines, Coach, a guy like Eric, I haven't seen him invited to the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl yet.
Yeah,
Is this
I don't.
an
Yeah,
opportunity for him?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's a good opportunity for everybody. I mean, you know what I mean? The weird thing about bowl games is I don't really understand kind of how we got to this point when it comes to bowl games. You know what I mean? Because, football coaches coach football. And so we have a bowl game. My job's to coach the team. Whether it's the national championship game or whether it's the New Mexico Bowl. You know what I'm saying? And we had a great experience at the New Mexico Bowl. I'll remember it the rest of my life. I think our players will. I'll remember playing in the national championship game the rest of my life. I think our players will. Football players play. Football coaches coach. And that's what we're supposed to do. I mean, you guys are sports writers and work in the world of media, and you don't go, well, we're not going to do this because it's a bowl game. I mean, we all work, and we're all supposed to work. And again, I don't understand how we got here. The teams that opted out, I mean, I don't think that's good for college football, quite frankly. I think that we're in the pickle that we're in right now with college football because I think that everybody has made decisions in their best interests. And I think that we're all supposed to do that to an extent. But, we don't exist in a vacuum. And so, if my team doesn't go play in a bowl game, that's not good for the teams that it means the world to them to play in a bowl game. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so there's such a difference in college football between the haves and the have-nots, and in the way people view things. And so it's a strange time right now. But my job is to coach our team. The player's job is to show up for the game and play and try to win the game. And anything beyond that is difficult for me to understand. I just don't quite get that way of thinking. But maybe that's unusual in today's world to view it the way that I view it. But I think that every game is important, and I think this is an opportunity for our players to go play in a game that's going to be highly viewed. My guess is this game at 8 o'clock on the 30th on ESPN, there's going to be a lot of people that tune in. So I think it's going to be important for our program. I think it's important for our university. I think it's important for the players individually to go out and perform at the very best against a really good opponent. And I think it matters. And again, I don't know what makes a bowl game different than the Cincinnati game or the Houston game or any game that occurred at the North Carolina game for that matter. I don't really get it. But like I said, football coaches coach and football players play. And that's what they're supposed to do. Not yet. We're trying to figure that out. The world of college football is always working on contingency plans. You know what I mean? And so I think that there's always plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan 1E, plan 2E, plan 3E, all the way down the road. And so, I don't know what we're going to do quite yet as that kind of plays out. We'll have an answer for you. I think we've got the way that we're going to practice is we'll practice on Thursday and Friday, and then we'll practice on Monday and Tuesday the following week. Those practices will be heavy fundamentals, heavy competition, almost like spring practices, where we're working on a lot of fundamentals and skills. A great time for everyone in our program to develop, but especially our young players. And so that'll be the focus, and then we'll transition. Now, we've already obviously started watching film for USC. We've obviously have ideas, offensively, defensively, special teams. We're working on that stuff already, obviously. But the focus will be on, getting everybody better. And then as we kind of transition after that fourth practice, it'll be a little bit more, USC specific.
Out of any of those plans, Coach, do any of them involve you maybe holding a play call sheet?
I don't know. We'll see. There's a chance. We'll kind of see how that plays out.
What's the reluctance, because you're not the first coach to do that, what's the reluctance to take on that responsibility for one game?
Oh, there's not a reluctance. You just want to do what's best for your team. You know what I mean? And so I think you just got to kind of get everybody in a room and sit down and figure it out. But there's not any reluctance.
That wasn't the right word. That's not the right word.
Yeah.
It's more about the time commitment. Is it a time commitment?
Well, I think it's like anything else. I mean, in our world, you're either all in or you're not. You know what I mean? And so it's difficult with again, back in the old days of college football, it was pretty simple. You had your players and they were here, and you sat in a room and you came up with a game plan and you went and coached. And now that, you're meeting with players, and it's just a lot different world. You're trying to raise money, which has become a huge part of what I do. A huge part, just to try to be competitive with what's going on right now in college football. And so that's something that devotes, that's something that I have to devote a lot of my time to. And then obviously players and retaining players has become critically important to the program. And so, it's an ever evolving world. And so it's difficult for me to walk into a film room and sit there for 12 to 16 hours a day, which is really what it takes to call plays.
Can you dive more into that when you say, you're having to spend time helping raise money? What does that entail?
Calling people and asking them for money, and just kind of selling them on the vision and making sure they understand, number one, what does it take to be competitive, and how do you hope to hold on to your players? Because look, I wake up every day to 50 text messages from agents that, are representing players, and I'm always expecting to see some of our players on the list. I haven't seen any yet, but guys that are being shopped. And I mean, literally hundreds of players every day. And so that's kind of how it works. And so what I've got to do is figure out, try to evaluate those players, and again, the portal hasn't opened for another month. And that's the reality of the world that we live in.
If you have to move on from your coordinator, which
Right?
you talk about contingency plans,
Yeah, you always do. Yeah, you always have some names. You always pay attention to trends that are happening in college football. You always have people that you know, and then you always have people that you don't know, but you have watched and admired and have seen and have caught your eye and attention. And so it's always balancing, those things, and just trying to find the right people if it happens.
do you anticipate anyone else possibly moving, any more staff changes?
Oh, my guess is if it happens, yes, but again, hard to predict.
You talked about, I think it was the summer coach, about guardrails.
Uh-huh.
A lot of guys use that term.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. There's not any.
Didn't happen?
No, there's none.
So if they didn't happen, do you have any hope that maybe in the future they could, or is this way it's gonna be?
My guess is this way it's going to be for a while.
Does that discourage you at all?
Not really. Discouraged is not the right word. It's challenging, but I'm not discouraged. I'm encouraged just by the fact that I'm at TCU and I'm at a desirable place, and I get to coach these players that love to play football, and we have a tremendous culture. And again, I think it revealed itself at the end of the year. You know, the terms of, and the fact that our guys played so hard down the stretch and it meant something to them. And so I think that's a very difficult place to get to in today's world. You know, where kind of everybody's a mercenary in some ways, and to create a culture where guys have a connection and care about each other and stuff is hard to do. And I think that the teams that are successful in today's college football landscape find a way to do it. You know, and I think it's like anything else. You watch Indiana the other day and you listen to their players talk and their quarterback talk after the game. And that's the first thing that came up is, hey, look, you know, we love each other, we care about each other, it's important to each other, and they have really good players. But at the end of the day, they got a good culture, and it matters.
Coach, when you look at the opponent, you go back to 1998, TCU beat USC.
Yep.
Pretty program.
Sure it was, yeah, for sure.
Does playing USC mean a little bit more, maybe not just to you, but maybe just TCU?
My guess is yes, it does. I mean, you know, I'm so insulated, you know what I mean, in terms of kind of what's going on. You know, I learned a long time ago, I haven't learned much in my career, but I learned a long time ago it's always the best, you know, the best thing you can do for yourself and your sanity and your happiness is to, you know, to kind of isolate, just in terms of, you know, what you pay attention to from fans, positive or negative, from media, positive or negative, any of that stuff. It's just, I just think it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy when, you know, it was unhealthy in 22 when we got a lot of attention and we got a lot of banquets and all that stuff, and it's unhealthy when things aren't going good. I mean, it's just not you have to do the best you can, and you have to believe in your process and not get too caught up in because everybody's got an opinion, and you're the best informed person. I mean, I know more than anybody about what's going on in my program and whether or not it's trending in the right direction or all those things. And so I can't worry too much about that. And so I think in some ways you isolate a little bit, but I've heard that from the people from you know, TCU people that I talk to and interact with. You know, they've certainly brought up the 98 game. I know how important it was to this program. I mean, I think that was you know, to me, there's always moments where you go, okay, we can do this. You know what I mean? And I think that was an okay, we can do this moment, you know, for TCU. And I think it led to a lot of things that happened after that. And so I understand there's a reason for nostalgia, for sure.
Your relationship with Link, you guys both touched it on the call. Does that make the game a little bit more special for you?
Yeah, I mean, me and Lincoln are competitive people, you know what I mean? And I think that's what drives us both. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, anytime you're playing against, you know, when you get old like me, it's every week. You know, you kind of got somebody on every staff where you go, I coach with this guy, or, you know, this guy was with me, or we worked together, or I worked for him, or whatever. I mean, there's just the older you get, the more of those happen. And so I think it loses a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, you know, I'll see Lincoln in the off season, and we always cross paths, and we'll spend some time together, and, you know, and we're both going to want to have bragging rights for sure.
So you took this team to the national championship game, and then the pride the fan base had, of, hey, look at us, because A&M had been there.
Right, for sure.
And now they've gotten to the college football playoff.
Yeah, it hadn't been the championship game yet. just so you know. I think there's only 5 coaches right now that have coached in one that are current coaches. And so I'm lucky to be one of those 5, maybe 6. Yeah, but yes, I mean, look, the state of college football right now in the state of Texas is awesome. You know what I mean? I think it's come a long way. I mean, I think it's good to see that, you know, everybody's competitive and the teams are good, and I think that you know, I think everybody certainly in this state understands how important it is to win, you know, at a high level, and what that does to your university and your fan base, and what is that worth. And so I think everybody clearly understands that and is investing in that in a big way, you know, and I think that, you know, that's it's really important to universities to be successful. Very important. Yeah, critically important. I mean, just from a developmental standpoint, you know, we always talk about this. We're a developmental program. In other words, we're going to recruit high school players. We're going to develop those players. We're going to try to retain those players, and then we believe in doing it that way. We also believe that the transfer portal is critically important, and we've got to master the transfer portal and make sure that when we go and we do it, we get the right players and quite frankly for the right cost. And again, it's crazy saying that, but there you got to find some value. You got to have a little bit of Brock Purdy success where you go find a player and you pay him the NFL minimum for 4 years and he's your starting quarterback. And what does that do to your team? Well, it allows you to pay everybody else more. And so there's a little bit of value stuff with finding the right players. But yeah, it's these practices are very, very important from a team building standpoint, from a camaraderie standpoint, from a developmental standpoint. And just the bowl experience, I think, is really important. The thing that when I look back at 22, or really even the New Mexico Bowl last year, the best thing about bowl games is you're going to end up, last year for us, it was in a casino. We had a luncheon in a casino, and I ended up sitting at a table with some of our players that I had never sat at a table with those guys before. And so I remember the game, but I actually remember having lunch with those players as much as I do anything else. And so that's what bowl games are about, it's a unique opportunity to experience something different and something unusual with people that, it's the mundane. It's day in, day out, it's the same schedule, it's, the same people here, it's the same people there. And when you go out of town and you have a different experience and you have these events and these type of things, you get to spend time with players, staff, people that you don't normally interact with that much. And that can be very impactful. And so I think from that perspective, I really believe that's what makes bowl games important and unique. And I think that's what I look forward to about opening next football season in a bowl game in Ireland. What's the unique opportunities of the interactions with our players and the experience and all that, because in a world where all anybody talks about is money and winning and losing, that stuff matters too. And so it's important, and I think it matters, and I think it helps shape those players' lives, and I know those guys have an impact on me.
Sonny, how do you manage your quarterback situation? Because Hoover, obviously, people came.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're coming right now. Yeah, they're coming. That's why I'm fundraising.
So managing that, and then also looking at, you said developmental program, your backups.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, everybody, it's in today's world, it's, not what have you done for me lately, it's what have you done for me in the last 30 seconds. And so, it's hard, but again, that's why you have to have relationships. That's why there has to be a level of trust that develops, when these kids are 17 years old and you start recruiting them. And when you tell them, hey, look, we're going to do something, and you do it. And the kid tells you, all right, I'm going to do something, and he does it. And then you guys start to build a relationship that's built on trust and a belief. And I think that stuff matters. And so I think that's what you do. You've got to sit down and you got to have a plan and you got to present it to them and you got to communicate with everybody. And you have to say, this is the plan, this is how it's going to work, and this is how it's going to make you successful, and these are the things you have to improve on, and this is how I see it. And so, but you have to have those conversations. You can't let those conversations occur with people that don't know, because they're going to occur. You know what I mean? I mean, some the guys are going to go home after the bowl game, and somebody that has never seen him practice or play is going to go, well, you're better than this guy. You ought to be starting. And that's just the way this stuff works. And so you better have a relationship with those guys that means something. Otherwise, they're going to listen to their neighbor or their cousin or whoever it is that's has an opinion that that has no idea what's going on. And so you got to have conversations. So I mean, there's a line out my door right now with everybody, whether it's administration, coaches, players, like I said, during this press conference, I've gotten 20 text messages from agents, I would imagine. I can feel it on my Apple Watch. It hadn't stopped buzzing. And so, you gotta figure out how to make it all work.
I heard Scott Frost say, I don't know if you saw this one out there tonight, but he said college football is broken. It's headline. Do you agree?
No, not really. I mean, it's challenging. It's uniquely challenging. Still the best sport in the world. I'm still lucky to get to do it. It's hard. There's not one thing easy about this. It's not easy to be a player. It's not easy to be a coach. It's a different world. It's something we all chose to be in. And so, I think Kirby Smart says it best all the time, no crying from the yacht. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know what I mean? Nobody feels sorry for any of us. Nobody should. I worked my entire life to be in this position that I'm in right now, and it's challenging, but I wake up every single day excited to go to work and look forward to, to trying to, number one, make this program as successful as it can be and win as many games as we're capable of and play for a championship and win a championship. And number two, give the players the absolute best experience that they can while developing them and hoping that, that you can have some kind of impact on their lives in a positive way.
Coach, last year, Nate Palmer was a true freshman that you guys played a lot in bowl games.
Yep.
Are there any true freshmen this year that you guys are?
Yeah, I'm hoping we get Ed Small back. I'm hoping we get Jacoby Hunter back. Or Jacoby Hayes, excuse me. I'm hoping that we get, I'm trying to think who else might come back. I mean, we've got some O-linemen that I think will probably take advantage of these 12 practices before we play. And so I'm that's my hope, is that, there'll be some guys that work their way into a possibility of playing. And who's it going to be? I don't know right now. But yeah, I mean, I could see 3 or 4 players kind of working their way into some significant playing time.
I'm not sure. Do you think there's a chance Anthony McAllister might play?
Yeah, I think he will. Yeah, I'll be surprised if he doesn't. Again, I haven't had that conversation with him, but I would expect him to.
Have you all decided on what position you guys are going to prioritize when the portal comes open?
Well, I think some of that depends on, kind of what happens with our current players. I think we're in a good position where we feel like we have really good young players. We feel like we've got, we're losing some guys that have played a lot of football, but we feel like we have recruited pretty well behind them. And so, but sometimes you have to go get some experience. And it's hard to bank on, young players, even though you might feel good about them, because there's just so much that goes into it. Can a guy stay healthy? Can a guy work through the wear and tear, that he's going to have is playing on Saturdays and the additional reps that he gets in practice and the competitive reps. And so, you think that you know how guys are going to respond, but everybody's a little bit different. And so we say it all the time, the most important ability in college football is availability. And can you count on guys to be available? And, at some point, some people prove to you that it's hard to count on them. Just they have a lot of injuries and they have a hard time working through things and they have some bad luck. And all those things are factors, and you have to factor all that in. And, and then you also have to factor in the, look, we get to see these guys all the time. We know their strengths and weaknesses, and we know the warts and all the stuff that everybody's got. And sometimes, you want to go trade a guy in for somebody in the portal. You don't know all that. You don't know. That's the bad thing about portal recruiting is you might have a guy on your campus for, 36 hours if you're lucky, more like 24, and so you just, normally what's good about high school recruiting is it happens over years. Most of the time you get to watch these players play, in some cases, 48 games in high school, or 40 games, if they're in the playoffs. And so, you get a lot of stuff, and sometimes with guys in the portal, you just don't know, and sometimes you inherit somebody else's problems. You just got to make sure that that's not the case.
Sonny, with all the different college moves, with the coaches going here and there, how many coaches call you? I think about some people like with Chris Lyman.
Yeah.
They're not, they're, you know,
Yeah, there's a lot of good coaches that are available right now. I mean, tons of guys. And so, yeah, same thing. I mean, those, when everybody sees that you have a potential opening on your staff, and there's always that assumption that there's going to be more because of that. You get a lot of calls from people that are very, that are very qualified, and it's just all about finding the fit. And so it's hard. I mean, look, when you're a head coach, it's difficult because, you hire a coaching staff and then, 100 guys that you can't hire. So then you spend time kind of repairing, they get mad at you. Then you spend 2 or 3 years repairing that relationship. Then you have an opening, and then you don't hire them again. And then you got to spend another 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe this time, trying to repair that relationship. And then if you don't hire them again, that's usually the end of the relationship. But that's just the way this stuff goes. You know what I mean? I mean, there's bullets flying every day, and you wake up every day, and you just try to go to work and do the best you can. But yeah, I mean, the good thing is there's a lot of really good football coaches that are looking for jobs. It's just that time of year, and the important thing is finding somebody that, whether you know them, whether you don't know them, whatever the case may be, that you think is going to make your program better.
how do you balance guys who were with you and then took another opportunity and then want to come back and give you phone calls?
Yeah, you just have to do what you think's best for your program. You know what I mean? And I think I say it all the time. I mean, you gotta eat some doo-doo sandwiches. I eat 500 a day, but I have to do what's best for the program, and I got to take my ego out of it. Doesn't matter how it makes me feel, what I think, all that stuff. I mean, I got to walk up to the table every day and eat them, and do what's best for the program, and I do it with a smile on my face.
Do you ever try to teach your family, you talked about getting too high during 22 and then getting too low during 2 and losing streak, because kids hear things at school.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's the hardest part about this business. I mean, because like I said, you can insulate yourself, but it's hard to insulate your kids, and that's the hard part. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what makes this stuff tough. I mean, you would not believe some of the things that people will say to your teenage daughters, on social media. I mean, it's not a good thing. But again, we signed up for it, and it's part of it. It's the bad part of it, but it's part of it.
I remember.
Yeah.
Seeing all these numbers, Coach, I'm sure you've seen too. These fantastical numbers associated with NIL and you
Yeah.
guys now signed some private equity deal with a company in Salt Lake City.
Who did that?
University of Utah.
Okay, yeah.
And then,
That's news to me. I didn't even know about that. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So you've seen all these numbers. And obviously TCU has a lot of money. There's a lot of significant people who have a lot of money. Do they have enough to compete with when you hear things like that?
Yeah.
Compete with that?
That's when I got into this business, it was important to work really hard. It was important to be a good coach. It was important to recruit. It was, you had to do all the things. And the blue bloods were the blue bloods, and you had to figure out a way to overcome it. And you could do it. That's why I came to TCU, is because I knew how special this place was. I knew how much people liked to go to school here. I knew how much the graduates loved being a TCU graduate. I knew how much that meant to them. I lived in Fort Worth in 2017 with Coach Patterson, hired me here. I knew what this community was like. I knew the support for the community. And so for me, when I took the job, I was like, okay, we can recruit guys that maybe get recruited by everybody. And we're gonna be a better evaluator than our opponents. We're gonna be a better developer than our opponents. We're gonna work harder than our opponents when it comes to recruiting. We're going to do all these things that kind of we can control as coaches. Okay, now you can't control how big your school is, you can't control, you know, some things, okay, but you could control those things, how hard you worked and how good you were at your job. You know, as the NIL stuff started to happen a little bit, the job changed. You know, it wasn't so much about that, it became more about, you know, how much can you pay somebody? And so that part is different. You know, and so my answer to your question is, I mean, you know, I don't know. You know, I think we're all trying to figure out how this is going to affect our place in the world when it comes to, you know, finding players. You know, because, you know, talent acquisitions, whether it's the Star Telegram or whether it's TCU football, talent acquisition is really important. And so, you know, you've got to find ways to figure it out. And you can still do it, but, you know, out recruiting somebody now and all those kind of things are harder, and especially when, you know, you can spend 2 or 3 years developing a player, pouring into them for all these years, and then somebody comes and makes them an offer they can't refuse. So that makes the job a little bit more difficult. Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. Looking forward to playing USC. Our guys are fired up, and I can't wait to get on the field Thursday and coach football. That's what I enjoy doing, so I can't wait to do it. Appreciate it.